This is LSAT Prep Test 155, Section 3, passage number 1. This is a passage about film history and how early movies get screened at archives and festivals. The difficulty level here is low to medium because the ideas aren't complicated, but there is a double standard buried in paragraph 3 that the test is going to exploit. Now, this is a humanities passage and the author is picking a fight. Their main point is that film archives obsess over making old films look authentic and then turn around and show them in a way that no original audience would recognize. And that hypocrisy is the whole passage. Now, paragraph 3 is the most important paragraph. And that's where the argument actually lands. I'm going to get there. Paragraph 1 is essentially just throat clearing. The author walks you through a basic idea. When you exhibit art, you group similar things together. Same painter, same period, same theme. In cinema, that becomes the retrospective. Same director, same studio, same genre, all lined up. Then it mentions that early nonfiction films have been getting this retrospective treatment lately, and that's it. Paragraph 1 is not arguing anything. It's handing you the conventional wisdom so the author can tear it apart. You want to read this at a normal speed and not get attached to any of it. Now, paragraph 2 is where the author's voice shows up. Watch out for the phrase, but I would argue that is a huge flag. Everything before it was neutral setup. Everything after it is the author talking. And the claim is that collecting similar films together doesn't work for early nonfiction, and the reason is historical. These were short films, most of them ran under 15 minutes. And nobody back then sat through a block of 5 similar shorts back then. Audiences saw grab bag programs, a drama, a comedy, a travelogue, then the news, all mixed together. And so screening a bunch of similar nonfiction shorts together in a row is historically fake. The author also calls it profoundly dull. And that word matters. It tells you this is not just a dry academic argument. The author thinks this practice actually ruins the experience. But you don't want to overweight the boredom point. It is supporting evidence. The real argument is about authenticity, and that doesn't fully arrive until paragraph 3. Now, you want to slow down for paragraph 3 because that's where the passage earns its keep. The author points out that film archives pour enormous resources into restoring films. They want the film itself to look exactly like it did when it was first made. They'll slap labels on these like director's cuts and parade them around as the authentic version. And the author doesn't argue with that work, and that's important. The author is fine with restoring the films. But then there's a flip. The author says that on the exhibition side, all that concern for authenticity vanishes. You've got this lovingly restored film, and then you drop it into a retrospective format that would have been completely alien to anyone who watched it in 1910. You strip away the mixed program that surrounded it, and you kill the contrast between a serious documentary and the comedy that played before it. You remove the context that made the film land. And so the author is calling out a contradiction. You're authentic about production, but sloppy about presentation. You care what the film looks like, but not about what seeing the film felt like. And that last line of the passage drives it home. The author says early programmers figured out how to mix films together, probably borrowing from vaudeville. And we'd be foolish to ignore what they knew. And that is the author at full volume telling you what they think. Now, the key move in this passage is the coin flip in paragraph 3, production versus exhibition. The author accepts one side of the authenticity effort, but rejects the other. And every hard question on this passage is going to test whether you caught that split. Now, here is the trap. A lot of students walk away thinking this passage is about whether retrospectives are boring or whether early films deserve better treatment. And those are pieces of the argument, but they're not the argument itself. The author's real target is the inconsistency. Archives act like authenticity matters for the film itself, but not for how the film gets shown. So if you frame this as saying retrospectives are bad, you're going to get pulled toward wrong answers on main point questions and author's attitude questions. The right frame is selective authenticity is the problem. Now, here's one more thing you want to watch for. In paragraph 2, the author describes what early audiences actually experienced. Students sometimes confuse that historical description with the author's main argument, but it's not, it's evidence. The author uses that history to prove that retrospective screenings are inauthentic. So you don't want to pick an answer that treats the historical facts as the point, they support the point. Now, as for how to speed through this passage, what pace should you take? I would take a normal pace through paragraph 1, pick up the author's voice at the top of paragraph 2, and stay pretty alert. then slow way down for paragraph 3, especially in the second half where the contradiction lands. Now, before you hit the questions, you want to check yourself on 3 things. First, can you name the specific contradiction the author is calling out? Second, can you explain why paragraph 2's history lesson exists, not what it says, but what job it does in the argument? And finally, do you know what the author actually wants archives to do differently? If you're fuzzy on any of those, you want to reread paragraph 3 before you touch a single question.